Something my grandfather used to say, it's a terrible thing when a community loses a church.
My name is Grant Tucker. I was born in Hens Harbor and moved to Winterton when I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old. I've been here for about 75 years. Winterton is a fishing settlement situated on the south side of Trinity Bay.
Winterton was a great place to grow up.
It was a very community-minded town.
Everybody knows everybody, very willing to help. It's my hometown. It's everything I ever knew.
Post-World War II, Winterton was probably among the biggest populations on the shore. As a matter of fact, Winterton, you see, was a satellite of Trinity. Trinity was the fishing metropolis for the bay, and all of the migratory fishermen, they came across the bay to Winterton. Certainly the first church was the Anglican Church because it was rooted in Trinity. And I know as I was here a small boy, maybe say 7, 8 years old, when you got up Sunday morning, you had to dress in your Sunday clothes. It was a holy day, you see.
It wasn't even questioned as to what was going on Sunday. You were going to go to church first, then you were going to go home and have your dinner, and then you were going to go back to Sunday school, then you were going to come back here after supper for the 7 o'clock service.
I loved going to church growing up. Loved it sometimes 4 times a day. Me and Mom and Dad, right, dressed up and waiting for the bell to ring, and it was wonderful.
On a clear Sunday morning in Winterton with the bells ringing, it was fabulous.
The churches were always full, and you often hear that in Newfoundland.
It's the place where people went to seek fellowship, they went to seek friendship and community.
The outreach that the church has within the community to bring people together and to create that goodwill and, you know, around the holidays, make things extra special for everybody.
Your cold plates, your soup suppers, and, you know, everything took place in the church and in the lodge.
And you'd hear the bell chiming away, and you'd see people coming in. So it was kind of like the heart of the community.
It was just part of our lives growing up, this church. In my adult years, I was part of the governing body here of the church. I sat on the vestry, which was a committee who ran the affairs of the church. We would try to raise funds to keep the church going, to keep the door open, as we would say. It gradually started to close in on us.
It reached a point in the town where the churches could no longer sustain themselves. The younger people weren't supporting the churches financially, so the writing was on the wall.
My sentiment when I found out that we were closing our church was, gee, we failed. And why did we fail?
It made me sad at that time, yeah, it sure did. Because I thought then that the church was going to be gone, right?
It's not only in Winterton, but many small other communities around Newfoundland are losing their churches.
I think that when these buildings close and churches become deconsecrated and all these fancy words associated with it, I think the social impact on the towns, I think, is almost immeasurable. I don't know how you take something out of a community that's been there virtually forever and is part of the town's fiber and its morals and its values. You remove that from the town and you expect the town to be exactly the same as it was before, I think is unrealistic.
It was heart-wrenching for me. Yeah. I heard for the people, and many times I cried for the people because I knew that they had many ancestors who had worked to keep, to build the churches and to keep them open. They had worked so hard.
We had a vestry meeting when we knew there was absolutely nothing else we could do, and this beautiful building was going to have to go on the market.
We didn't ever think that it would be sold. We had a yard sale right out in the front of the building, and we just probably gave a lot of it away. The things that were in the kitchen and out in the annex area of the church. And the building just emptied out.
And I could remember sitting in the second seat there and thinking, my goodness, what's going to happen to this building? Little did I know that there was going to be a guy in Los Angeles having a dream while he was putting his little girl to sleep. And he rescued us.
All of a sudden, there's somebody interested in our church. And I thought, oh, wow, who could be interested in the church? So I found out his name, and I Googled him.
I Googled and found out who he was.
I Googled him. I'm like, who is Greg Wells?
He got a few dollars. I found that out on Google.
And I see all these names that he's worked with, like Katy Perry and Adele, and I mean, the list goes on.
I recognized the Wells name and I pieced two and two together, and that's how I came to figure out who exactly Greg Wells was.
I'm Greg Wells, and I am a Canadian record producer, musician, songwriter, mix engineer, noisemaker, generally nutty person. I'm a preacher's kid. My dad was a United Church minister. I grew up in the church, and one of the biggest influences on me was just the music. The music played in the church. I leapt at any opportunity that there was for music. My grandmother, Signe Mills, was her maiden name. I always had a real huge natural connection with her. We just clicked. Part of wanting to pay things forward here in this community where I did spend a bunch of time as a kid, where my grandfather was born and raised, is it feels like, you know, it's in tribute to both my grandparents and to their ancestors, and just how hard it was. So, like, living in Newfoundland, certainly pre-electricity, was hard. It's hard. But them forging ahead and you know, whatever, it all led to me getting to be alive and then getting to have the lofty opportunity to actually like pursue music as a living, you know, which was just not on the menu for someone like my grandmother, who absolutely, had she been born in 1968 when I was born, could have done the same thing, and I think could have really excelled at it and would have loved it.
Greg, at one time, he'll report this himself, had what I call an epiphany, an awakening.
I have 6 children. I was putting my second youngest to bed. My little daughter, she was 5 at the time. Sometimes when my kids fall asleep, it makes me fall asleep. And that happened, and it was kind of dimly lit in her room. I don't know why, but when I woke up, I was filled with the feeling that I had to look for something that felt like special. It felt like real estate. It felt like a family connection. It felt like something really good could come from it. And it felt like I could buy it right then at 9:45 p.m. that night. And I've never felt anything. I've never bought real estate for my phone. I've never felt that feeling before. And I knew how weird it was at the time, but it was very strong. It was all here in my gut. So I searched church for sale in Canada. And the top result, and it may have been the only result actually, said church for sale in Winterton. I thought, that's interesting. I clicked it, and by God, it was the church that my grandfather was the part-time minister of and grew up in. I've been in there running around as a little boy, and it was for sale for $35,000. Like, for the price of a Toyota Corolla, it was for sale.
Greg's great-grandfather was a lay reader in the United Church, of course, the Methodist Church. His grandfather had preached in the church when he was home during the summertime, and Greg's father as well, on a visit home in the summer, had preached in the United Church. So Greg had thoughts of buying this church. I had to tell him, sadly, I'm sorry, but that church has been sold. But I said, the Anglican Church has just closed. I'm not sure whether they're going to sell it or not. I do think they will.
Click, contact realtor, and I wrote to him. And he said, it's more money, but it's in way better shape. And he said, it's really beautiful. I'll send you some photos. And it just started there. And he was right.
I got in contact with Gloria Wendover, who was the Anglican priest in the church. I sort of put Greg in contact with her. That's how the ball started rolling.
Greg's offer was not the only offer that went in for that building. He had sent me a letter, and of course I read it to the parish council.
It was a very impressive letter of what he wanted to do with the building. He wanted to turn it into a musical center. He wanted to give back to the community.
What a blessing it would be, not only for the people of Winterton, but for the whole island of Newfoundland, And it was unanimous. His offer of what he was going to do was just an answer to all of our prayers.
I contacted him and I said, I heard you've got the building bought, and I said, if there's either way that I can be of any help to keep you interested and to help you reach the vision that you have for this building, I'm willing to do it.
And it wasn't too long after that when he asked if I would be interested in going on the board that runs Trinity Hall. And without hesitation, I said yes.
I loved, and it was important to me, that both Rhoda and Anne went to this church. So they grew up here, and they have had all sorts of super important milestones here, and watched other families go have the same milestones here. They love this place. It means so much to them. I feel very lucky to have them involved. This is the kind of building that it is unthinkable that it would ever be for sale. Growing up in the church, I really understand how people's lives have been defined in a space like this, where, right there, people have been married, have been baptized, they have buried family members. There's a graveyard right there that goes with headstones that go back to the early 1700s. So I think it's one of the oldest cemeteries, if not the oldest cemetery in Newfoundland, right there. There's a ton of history here. I didn't want the perception to be like, who is this jackass Hollywood record producer coming in? That was a huge concern.
What I said to my wife when I heard that it was sold, I said, how is this going to affect the town? We can't do something here to make it worse. How is he going to screw up my hometown?
You never know what to expect. And there's always the thought, what's his plans? What does he intend to do? They're all legitimate questions. They were the questions that I had too.
Greg put an end to that as soon as he came.
He's just so down to earth, and he's in it for the right reasons.
He's like someone we've known all of our life.
You never judge a book by its cover, obviously.
He's as Newfoundland as you can get, I can tell you that, and in all the right ways.
And everybody in Winterton is 100% behind him.
The first time I walked in here was in July of 2022.
I wanted to be here when he saw the building for the first time. He was just in awe.
I walked in the door and I could barely breathe. I was so knocked out, so blown away. I couldn't talk for a while. And Ann Walker was here. She was inside the church, and there's some photos that she took of that moment, and you really see it looks like it was really wild. It was beautiful, but it was heavy, overwhelming, humbling, so humbling. I'm so happy with it. I'm so glad it worked out this way.
To have someone like Greg roll into Winterton, buy a church, renovate it, turn it into a venue, and open a recording studio in a rural Newfoundland community is like lightning has struck 3 times in one space. Like it doesn't even make sense.
Already, it's created a positive buzz within the town that something is happening.
You could feel it out in the community. Oh, he's going to come here and he's going to do some big things. It's going to be hope for the community.
I think people are really excited because it's something new and something unique, and it's wholesome. May the 19th, 2023, planning a 7-hour festival, basically free to the public for anybody to come listen to a bunch of local acts, people playing music for the right reasons and enjoying each other's company. And that's what the grand opening is going to be at Trinity Hall.
We know that we have a lot of work to do before May 19th.
You know, planning is one thing, but executing is another, right?
When you buy a building which is 120 years old, from a renovation perspective, you just look at the scope of the project and the amount of work. Good luck, Godspeed.
I don't think any of us knew what we were getting into.
Renovation started incredibly slowly. Nothing's been done right in that building for 120 years. It became really evident really early on that we needed to do a full overhaul because it was a church. I mean, like we always say, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, you know, it's a church.
Greg didn't realize at the time when he bought this building that the heating system was not up and running.
It looked like the furnaces were completely new and working fine, and they weren't. They're oil furnaces, and someone had taken the oil tank away 2 years ago. So there's no means of heating this building at all, and I had to solve that, which wasn't cheap.
Our initial attempt to heat the building was to use a heat pump, a ducted heat pump.
And I thought to myself, I said, it's not going to work.
That did not work. When I was there this morning, the temperature was still falling in the building. I really don't know where to go with it from here. We were told it was going to work. We were guaranteed it would work, and it's not working.
You know, like there's no insulation in this building. How about that? You know, I put heat pumps in. There's no insulation.
We've got nothing to show for what we've already invested, and I don't see where that's our fault when we were told that on the initial quote that this would work based on the initial $25,000 investment. So there were just cracks in the foundation that you could see through because, again, it's not your traditional concrete foundation. The church was built on literal stones, so it's not airtight by any stretch. So that failed miserably. Yep, no, that's fair enough. Ooh. Things are not going well, to put it blatantly. Just got off the phone with Greg, and we're kind of at a loss as to where to go from here.
Back to the drawing board again to come up with something else, right?
When we started into what was called the annex area, the annex was built on as a meeting space, a small kitchen area. In the real cold months in the winter, they'd move their church services into the annex and create a temporary altar. The big question was, what's Greg Wells going to use the annex for? He had this vision of a nice artist lounge. We devised a plan to tear out the walls in the annex and the office area and build a huge studio control room. What it's turned into was a full-on cosmetic renovation. All new drywall, plaster, paint, floors, all brand new ceiling.
The electrical needed a lot of upgrading.
Everything from the ground wire right to the electrical panel, all the wiring. There was knob and tube throughout the building. Massive electrical upgrade. Basically the entirety of the electrical system.
Because they're pretty expensive, right? They are expensive. So we were going to shop around a little bit to see what we could find.
It just doesn't stop. And it's big and it's high ceilings, and we'll just see how things go out, you know, how uncomfortable they get. And I don't really know. I've never done this before. I hope it stays standing.
Back in November, talks started about a pipe organ.
Greg wanted a pipe organ in Trinity Hall. He was looking for pipe organs on the internet for sale. He had me calling carpenters, asking, can you build me a pipe organ?
Last fall, our oldest daughter, as part of her work, was invited down to the Masonic Temple. As they were getting a tour of the temple, my daughter saw a big pipe organ there.
She said, you know, I know a guy who's looking for a pipe organ. They're like, great, hook us up, let's talk.
I looked at the organ last October when I was here and Someone played it for me. It wasn't fully working. Then I priced out the restoration of it, and it was very, very, very expensive. It was about 150,000 US dollars to just get it up to kind of like basic working order. You could easily spend more than that. It could easily be $250,000. I said, I have an idea. I don't know if you're gonna like this, but if you don't want to take that organ to the dump, you don't want to like burn it and set it on fire, if you don't want to just trash it, I'll take it and I'll try to make it work in this little church here in Winterton. And they came back and said, we like that a lot. Sure, okay, let's do it. And they put it on a flatbed truck and they shipped it here.
This big truck backs into the front doors, and they open the back door of that thing, and we all just kind of look at it going, what have we gotten ourselves into? So we're watching these workers bring in this pipe organ cabinetry piece by piece by piece by piece, and everything is labeled with little pieces of green tape. It just says like, this is the left back half of such and such. Like it was insane. I have no idea how it was even taken apart and labeled so meticulously.
We got an organ. I'm looking around now at 1 million different pieces, and eventually we are going to get it all assembled, and it will be just beautiful.
We've been blessed with a bunch of generous donations, from an 1860s pipe organ right to a grand piano that's been donated by one of the residents of Winterton.
There is a really remarkable man named Walter Tucker. He just said to me, he said, Greg, if there's any way I can ever help you with what you're trying to do here, let me know. So I emailed him, I said, I know this is weird, but you did say if I ever needed some help, you don't have to do this. You can tell me to go jump in the nearest lake. I hope you don't mind me asking you this, but do you have any interest in considering possibly donating some kind of grand piano to Trinity Hall? He sent back 3 listings, and he said, pick which one interests you the most. What he didn't tell me is that he was lying in a hospital bed. Didn't mention that at all.
I was in the hospital, just had open heart surgery. No wonder they hadn't lost me, and I was happy that I didn't get lost, and I was actually starting to recover. And when Greg called me, I was thanking my lucky stars that I was still there. And even though I couldn't go out and play hockey or baseball at that time, I could go find a piano, and I did.
Then he called me soon after. He said, the piano's yours. He said, here's the owner's phone number, give him a call and figure out how to get it to Trinity Hall. I couldn't believe it.
It makes me so happy and so proud to, first of all, be able to do it, and secondly, to do it. It's in Trinity Hall now. Greg was the guy that named it, and it's called Walter.
I've been feeling time crunch and pressure since last September, because you just look at the scope of the project. There's an astronomical amount of work that's gone into this.
Living in California, I mean, my wife can tell you that really for the last, I don't know, since last fall, I wake up thinking about Trinity Hall. I go to sleep talking about it. I'm talking to at least one of the board members every day, even on the weekend, about something that needs to get solved.
Everything that happens behind the scenes, the licensing, the permits, the inspections, the sourcing of quality contractors, and the workmanship that has to go into the things that are behind the walls that you don't even see. Like that stuff. Right now, we're leading up to the grand opening. As the days were ticking by and the time was ticking by and the building was still frosty cold, and yeah, we're feeling the crunch.
Some of the older windows really need to be reframed. That's another big job. We're discovering new leaks all the time. Just chasing water, trying to stop the leaks. It's probably going to be an ongoing thing forever.
I always make the joke about going back to the well, you know, the well of water. We always goes back to the well looking for more money, and it's Greg Wells.
I could easily spend another $100,000 on this building and probably still not be done.
The carpentry, the electrical, and the heating is still ongoing. Hopefully, it'll all be up and running in the next few weeks.
I saw some older photos of St. Luke's Anglican Church, and there used to be this really beautiful original bell tower. It was quite ornate, nice and tall and pointy.
He did ask, is there a bell here? I said, there used to be a bell here, but it's not here anymore.
It was in the tower, you see. They had to repair the tower, and it was too expensive to repair it as it was. So they had to sort of dismantle it and put a small tower in. That means there was no place for the bell. So they took the bell out.
The last person who came in to do work on the building, the church turned over the actual bell to him and said, you know, like, you can take this as part of the payment. So the bell disappeared.
Is there any chance we can get it back? He said. I said, well, I don't know, but we can try.
So that began kind of a hunt to get it back. I started asking on Facebook, does anyone know where the bell is? And someone said, yeah, I know where it is.
One Sunday, I said to my husband, let's go over to Ochre Pit Cove to have supper. Well, I had an ulterior motive. I knew that the bell was over there. So we went and we saw the bell on a lawn.
What's a church bell doing on a lawn, you know?
We started to do a little bit of research, and we made contact with the owner of the bell, and we negotiated.
So Greg got the bell back. He bought the bell back.
It's a huge part of history here, and I'm so happy that it's back. It's beautiful.
The bell was made in 1904. This is solid brass, and I mean, it weighs a ton.
So heavy. Watching them lift it in here was something else. They had to get some heavy machinery. That's a whole movie unto itself. It was hilarious. Randy Pinhorn made a brand new wooden base for it.
The next job was to remount the actual bell onto the base.
So Ryan had actually showed up with his engine lift that he uses for restoring old cars and different things.
You tie out lifting straps, right? And lift it. Because like I said, trying to hold on to the bell, you'll never be able to do it. But strap shoot, you got 3 bells, 1-inch strap, lift it up. We had a bunch of people there who came to help in any way that they could. But what really stuck out to me that day, people in their 60s, 70s who were there, the joy for them seeing the bell, and they all took a turn, like a bunch of children in a candy store, ringing the bell.
And it just reverberated through that building so beautifully, and it was kind of a magical moment to be part of.
And it sounds amazing. Quite an endeavor, but there it sits, and it's probably gonna sit there for another 1,000 years. It's beautiful. In the same way I wanted to preserve and capture and document and protect this building, I felt like I wanted to do that also with the music that was being made here. The idea of trying something like Silly Cove Records just appeared fast and really quite organically. I got talking with Ryan Gates and realized he was a huge music fan and was very aware of a lot of talent here.
He said, would you be interested in being A&R for Silly Cove Records? I said, yes. What's A&R? So he explained to me that A&R stands for Artists and Repertoire, which I didn't know. He said, well, your job is to go out, find acts and people and individuals who you think would be a good fit to record music on our label. I thought to myself, the first album recorded at Trinity Hall should be somebody from Winterton if we can find the right interested person.
A friend from the town actually messaged me and told me to send in a song. So I sent it in while making pancakes for my children, and I recorded it on my phone.
As soon as Ryan sent me a recording of Courtney's, I thought, this is really interesting. There's something about the way it comes through her. It's just so confident, but it's not like, listen to me. It's not that at all. It's just like, the content is just so strong, you don't need anything else other than just to let it happen.
Ryan gave me a call, and he said how Greg wanted me to do this traditional album. And I was like, okay, great. And he's like, at no cost to you. I'm like, okay, great.
I don't want to be paid for it. I don't want to have to say that that's an expense. It's just not part of it. 50% goes to the artist and 50% goes straight back into the community. It's not a typical situation. You know, we're not like some massive machine that's gonna take over the world, but I think we have a chance at making some music that's like really special. And who knows what could happen with that.
Courtney's album was recorded in over a course of 2 days in October 2022.
We recorded her right here. She's standing right here. And just a whole bunch of beautiful ribbon mics, some way up in the air, capturing the sound of the stuff bouncing off the wooden rafters and beams. Turns out we can't record anything during the day because people ride an ATV by here and it sounds like they're riding it through the church, but so we have to wait till the evening.
They were building the wharf down here in Winterton, and I'd just stand up in the middle there, start singing, and then you'd hear a jackhammer going, or you'd hear someone next door cutting wood. So there were some challenges for sure, but it makes for a great story. This May is going to be the grand opening for the building. And we're also doing my album release, I believe, on that night. And so they're really trying to get the renovations done for that.
I could feel the deadline approaching, and I was starting to get, just worried that, like...
The list of projects was just huge, and we still were cold. Like, nothing happens without heat. Nothing happens from a renovation perspective, from an equipment perspective, from a operational perspective. We had no heat.
And we tried a few different companies, hoping and praying that in this 100-year-old non-insulated building, we would have heat for the big day.
Finally settled on mini splits, your traditional single 2-ton heat pump, which provides hot air right up from the source. So, on the road, heading back again to Trinity Hall over in Winterton. Just got off the phone with our new contractor who's installed 5 mini splits in the building. He claims way more heat than we will ever need. Fingers crossed it's the case, but early reports say temperature in the building coming up. Hopefully that mess is behind us.
The day we had the new mini splits installed at Trinity Hall was like the most glorious day possible. It's like, oh, here we are. We've got heat, everything else will follow.
There's a ton of stuff to get ready, equipment-wise, cleaning-wise, a whole bunch of things, but to finally walk into that building and feel like you can take your coat off, that's a huge step, because there's another big project in the wind here. There's a pipe organ restoration, which is a story all in itself.
It was in pieces here on stage for a long time. I think everybody was scared of it. And I kept saying, I think we gotta put the organ together. I think we gotta put the organ together. I think we gotta put the organ together.
I was like, how? It doesn't make any sense to me.
The grand opening was looming and coming up. The date was getting closer and closer and closer. I said, guys, stop. We gotta, let's do this. The width of it fit almost perfectly, which is total coincidence, but it was way too high. So we came up with a way to shorten the base, but make it look like nothing had been taken away. Kind of looks like it always has looked like that.
I can tell you, in the last couple of days that I've been over there, it's at the point at the project where you're finally starting to see the finish line.
All right, welcome to the annex. So this is the portion of Trinity Hall, which now houses our artist lounge. As you can see, it's been totally renovated and turned into something brand new.
We have still got a lot to do before our grand opening, but I have a wonderful team who work with me, and we've all got our little duties that we plan to do and have to do to get this working, and it is working. Greg is coming in May, and we will get it done.
This is my 3rd trip here this year. Even when I'm in California, I kind of feel like I'm also here. I'm not saying that to sound all woo-woo, but I do feel such a pull to being here. I feel such an excitement about when I do get to be here. I definitely feel like a connection to, like a physical sensation. I don't know why I do, but I've always felt it here. Even as a kid, it feels like home. On this trip, I've been lucky enough to have some really exciting conversations with a legendary artist like Ray Johnson, with a really wonderful guy in government named Steve Crocker.
First, when I read the story, it was kind of like, that's quite interesting. The opportunity that somebody, with Greg's achievements and Greg's knowledge, and quite frankly, his willingness and desire to give back could actually bring to this project and to a community like Winterton.
I don't think there's any place where music is made like Newfoundland. I've known for a long time that music is so important. It's in everyone's bloodstream here. It's in the drinking water. All I'm really doing is I'm not creating anything. I'm just kind of holding a microphone up to a thing that's already here. I'm just kind of pointing to a thing that's already here.
We're looking forward to working with Greg. We're committed to being a partner in supporting his efforts and supporting him.
He's really onto something that's going to push our young people to take part in the traditional music so that it'll rise to the point that, wow, Newfoundland is alive and well. Simple as that.
Come on in.
It's been really refreshing to see it all come together. We're approaching the grand opening, and a lot of the projects now are starting to wind down. Hats off to our contractors. They've worked through the winter in spaces that weren't the most comfortable.
Jeff and his team were absolutely incredible. These guys are able to do just about anything when it comes to the renovation process on an old building like this.
The pipe organ behind us, I had the idea of removing all of the pipes from the inside of the wooden cabinets because I actually don't want it to sound like that organ. I want to convert it into a sample-based pipe organ. And Jeffrey Coates was able to figure out how to do that without messing with the look of it. So now the wooden cabinets are filled with massive Yorkville PA speakers.
We've been blessed with people who really had our interest and the interest of the town at the forefront.
They were thorough, they were concise and consistent, and couldn't thank them enough.
I think we're on the right track. So if we do $50 a hoodie, the thing is, we need to get to a point too where because right now Greg is giving me the $2,000 to front the purchase of this. That's not, we're not going to ask him for a donation. So we got to start to make enough money on this stuff so we can afford to buy our own.
Those last few days before the grand opening were definitely a little hectic. Again, that anxiety is in the room of we're about to do this crazy 7 hours of music and invite the whole community in free of charge, and it was ambitious, to say the least.
I just couldn't figure out, if there was hundreds of people showing up, where were they going to park, or how were we going to let so many people in when there was a capacity order?
What are we going to do with stage management? Of course, there was food being served, so we wanted to make sure that not all 137 people were piling back into the annex at the same time to get a chicken wing, right? So we had to manage all that. So yes, there's a bit of pressure on not only the board, I'm sure, but the volunteers at the time to make this as professional as possible for the audience and the patrons that were coming there.
I was really underslept. I had been here pretty much every night till 2:30 in the morning. And the day before the grand opening, I was a basket case. I was so wound up and so stressed and felt pretty out of control and became actually kind of cranky. Got here, was really uptight. Had to find something in the studio, couldn't find it, got really wound up.
There definitely was some nervous energy. I think this is a totally brand new field for him.
He was nervous, yes, and rightfully so. I mean, what an undertaking for him personally, and he entrusted us with a lot of responsibility. He just wanted it to be perfect.
I was uptight and nervous for all the right reasons. I just wanted it to go really, really well. The board of directors have really, they helped me so much, and they still do. And even now, in the middle of it, they're coming up to me and telling me things that I've forgotten.
Pivot.
I mean, all of our board of directors members were pretty well on site as much as they possibly could be to tie up all the loose ends with unboxing materials and you know, putting up like curtains and fixtures around the building.
Everybody just saved my sanity. There's just been so much kind of literally heart and soul, you know, in here for so long. And there's something about this place that's wild. There's just a lot of mojo here, you know. I want people to come here, I want people to discover it. And I think that's already happening. I think it started happening the day of the grand opening.
So it's grand opening day. I get to the hall early on, and we had to get some like merchandise set up. I was kind of running around with like 2 or 3 iPads, I think, at one point, trying to get like the Square and the internet to work.
We had such a robust plan in place. We pulled in a bunch of volunteers from the town, and without that team of people, a cardiologist wouldn't have approved. Many hands make light work. There was no truer saying ever said.
It turns out we had planned really well for it.
Once those doors opened and those first few people came in and took a seat and the music started pretty much immediately, that's it, we were up and rolling.
I walked in and I could see where my mom and dad and me used to sit on the right-hand side of the church. I knew just where the pew was too. It brought back wonderful memories, wonderful memories.
It was like a super huge, happy feeling. And I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. And I just walked into this momentum of harmony and like good feelings and good vibes, goodwill. And it just grew and grew and grew. It kept going and going and going. It got better and better and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was just a beautiful, insanely gorgeous experience.
The town of Winterton municipality showed up with, you know, gifts, plaques, you know, congratulations on the grand opening and whatnot. A big surprise. The performers had their own little surprises in place with, you know, teaming up on different songs and different things. It was a super special day.
That day was fabulous. I'd put it up there with any days that I've had during my lifetime. Fabulous day.
When you look around and think about the acoustics of that building, and to see how he's now blended technology into that facility. You know, a lot of musicians in Newfoundland and Labrador, you know, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I think it's just an amazing opportunity for the musicians and the industry professionals in our province to have an opportunity like this right at our doorstep. So it's awesome.
One of the first things I think that we ever recorded at Trinity Hall was the sound of the bell in the room.
Then Jeremy had a great idea. He said, you know, you should play that through the PA speakers at the grand opening. We have a little treat for you right now. Not too loud.
Silence fell in the room. And then it was the chiming of the bell. Ding, 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 ding.
And so I saw some people getting emotional, and, you know, because they grew up with it. They grew up with that sound.
Seeing an individual be willing to go out and spend his own money to bring back a piece of heritage that he knew would be important to people in the town, I think that's why people have rallied around this project as much as they have.
You hear the sound of the church building. It's beautiful.
Trinity Hall is there to help the community, and that all stems back to Greg's original vision and, again, him as a person.
I want Trinity Hall to be many things. I want it to always promote inclusivity long after I'm gone.
When he gave a speech and talked about, you know, his inclusionary ideas for Trinity Hall was really kind of breathtaking. So to be an openly gay man on the board of directors for Trinity Hall is truly special.
All are welcome here, and all are honored here. Bring it on, come on in.
I think it's really nice to hear that reiterated sometimes, and for it to be, put out as a reminder to everybody that like, hey, we're not all exactly the same, and that's okay. Not only is it okay, that's what's so beautiful about it. There's value in difference.
One of my favorite memories from the grand opening was, but when the lights came down finally, like when it started to get dark outside, and the only thing that was lit was the archway above the stage, and Courtney doing her thing. It was something I'll never forget.
Just to stand up there and all these people came to see what we made was actually incredible. And I'm gonna cry. The next day, we had a second sellout show. And then the Sunday, Greg actually had a masterclass, and there was over 100 people who showed up for this songwriting masterclass. I think it exceeded our expectations.
I can't imagine it being any better, to be completely honest.
It was just a beautiful, insanely gorgeous experience.
When I walk into Trinity Hall now, and you see the smiles, and you see people talking to each other who probably haven't talked to each other in a couple of weeks, couple of months, haven't seen each other in years. You see people enjoying the music. The place is filled full of joy, and it's just a happy place, feels like home.
And this is going back to the church being a pillar for community and community gathering. It's still a great venue to bring people together.
I mean, the churches were the focal point of most things in the community at one time. Trinity Hall has certainly become a focal point of Winterton now.
Where this place is going to be in 20 years, I really have no idea. I hope I'm around in 20 years, and if I'm not, please, somebody keep it going. I mean, just whatever this is, like, keep it going. Music is a really powerful, beautiful thing. I don't think there's anything like it.
People used to say years ago when the organ would play and the choir would get up and sing, the congregation would take part. It's like the music just hit the rafters of this building. To see a music center set up here in this same building, I can only imagine how far that will go. Sky's the limit.
Godspeed.
This feels like we are reaching back and pushing forward at the same time, honoring the past and looking with 20/20 vision toward the future. Thank you all for everything. Thank you for coming today, and here we go.